Welcome everybody to Spirit Matters. We're tuning in live from the Govardhan Eco Village in Maharashtra, Mumbai. I'm Dayal with Dhanya and Kishore on your Daily Bhakti Center podcast. We're really glad to be with you. How you guys doing?
Very good.
We got some head nods over here, recognizing that there's a microphone that we need to speak into. We are almost It's almost been a week since we've started this pilgrimage,
Mm.
and we've been here at the Govardhan Eco Village, and we're already getting close to the time that we're leaving. Time flies. Um, and what have you guys' I'm just wanted to rest on that for a second. What have you guys' highlights been? There's a massive tractor outside right now that people say they can't hear because we have like this really high quality microphone that doesn't pick up ambient noise. But like
But we can hear it.
we can hear there's like a massive track. So as we're speaking, we're just like we just imagine there's a big rumbling. So it's not a monster or anything like that. There's just a tractor because India is always under some state of construction. But I thought maybe just before since we're here in this space, and we're not going to have a podcast the next 2 days, and I don't know what next week's schedule is going to look like because we'll be traveling now. We're going to be leaving Mumbai. We're in Govardhan Eco Village outside of Mumbai. We're going to be going to Mumbai, and then we're going to be going to Dehradun to go to Rishikesh. Then we're going to be going to Vrindavan. So we'll have some traveling. So I don't know how many episodes we'll be able to have next week, but so this is kind of like our final podcast episode while we're here. And I just wanted to maybe just check in with you guys. How has your trip been, and what are some of your highlights or experiences or reflections
Mm,
traveling thus far?
Danya?
We're all sharing one microphone, by the way, also.
um, well, I haven't been here since 2018, so it's been definitely really beautiful to come back here to Govardhan Eco Village, to India, but specifically to Govardhan Eco Village. I think it's a really nice place. If anyone's ever been, or if you haven't been, you should come, because it's a very nice place. We were receiving a talk yesterday from the director here. His name is Gauranga Prabhu, and he was kind of explaining a little bit the history, and that was actually really wonderful for me. I really, really, really loved that talk, and he was so into like architecture and the history and how everything came to be. And if you come here to Govardhan Eco Village, there's a part called Vrindavan Forest, and there's also replicas of the temples in Vrindavan, of the main temples in Vrindavan. And specifically, most recently, they made an exact replica of this main temple called Madan Mohan, which we'll be going to later today and chanting there. And just kind of seeing how the mood of Vrindavan and the mood of bhakti is really carried in the hearts of Radhanath Swami, but also of all of his disciples, and how they're just so, I don't know what the word is. Gauranga Prabhu put it so nicely. He said that Radhanath Swami is like hope personified. And I feel like so many of his disciples or people that appreciate Radhanath Swami, they share that, like they have that, like everyone here has just interacting with the people here has been like a ray of light. Specifically, there's many devotees, but one, our god sister, her name is Hari Priya, and she's just like, it's like stunning to be around her, in my opinion. It's just like she's just emanating like love and happiness and joy and like playfulness and sweetness, and all the devotees have just been so helpful and loving. So I think that's definitely been a highlight for me, just like being around the people here, and how they've taken care of us and of the group, and how they've really, really gone out of their way to make every facility available to us. And also that mood of Vrindavan. Yes, that's what I was getting at. That mood of Vrindavan, how there are the replicas, of course, of the temples, and that's really beautiful, and you really feel like you're in Vrindavan here. And I was just saying to my partner Braj, I was like, wow, when you see the Madan Mohan temple here, it's just surrounded by greens and by fields. And I was like, this is what it was like in Vrindavan, maybe like 30, 40 years ago, before it got kind of industrialized and like this. And it was just such a beautiful moment, because now Vrindavan, for those of you that have been, and if you haven't, you should go, of course, this is a place you should go to. But if you go now, materially, it's quite austere, and you have to. We've been kind of like prepping our the people in our group. We've been telling them like Govardhan Eco Village is very nice and it's very beautiful, and it's like it's good we arrived here, but get ready, we're going to Vrindavan, and like Vrindavan's intense and austere, and so materially it's quite austere, and it's been run down a little bit by the spiritual tourism and by many other factors. And the Yamuna River is unfortunately quite not doing so well, and many of the structures not doing so well. So I've appreciated that the most, kind of the mood of Vrindavan carried in the hearts of the devotees here, and then also actually just feeling like you're in Vrindavan here. It's really, really wonderful. Yeah, that's been it for me.
Ooh, we have a table that we're like really testing faith on. Yeah, I agree. Just being here has been so, oh Krishna, mystical. Yeah, getting to know everybody has been my highlight. The more I kind of learn about each person, the more I feel like, wow, this is exactly where we're all meant to be, and we're all, even coming from so many different places, we're all obviously on a journey for a reason, kind of in a confluence right now together. But kind of echoing what Kishore was saying, hearing Chaitanya Charan Prabhu speak, just kind of remind, sometimes bhakti can be so simple and spontaneous and like artistic and sensual in so many ways, and hearing him speak, I was like reminded of the depth and the science and the yeah, just it's just so elaborate and so profound, and hearing that was so magical. And also hearing Gauranga Prabhu's talk yesterday, and it was reminding me that in our scriptures it says that you can go on pilgrimage, but what makes a place of pilgrimage holy is the sadhus. And so to go and to a place of pilgrimage and soak in the association of these self-realized people. I mean, Hari Priya is a sadhu, and Gauranga Prabhu is a sadhu, and Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is a sadhu. To take in their association, that's the real pilgrimage. So for me, that I feel like a little sponge that's been like drying out, for so long in my little kind of comfort zone and Alatra in my home and stuff, and just kind of longing, using technology to the best of my abilities, listening to podcasts and classes and stuff of sadhus that I'm kind of in separation association with. But to be in person and take in the full sensory experience of standing in the presence of greatness, it's like I forgot how magical that feels. So like I was saying with Gauranga Prabhu when we were walking the other, I was like, there's something in his eyeballs. Like there's like a clarity of mind that I just see his eyeballs. I'm like, those are the most clear, pure eyeballs I've ever seen in my life. And they were suggesting I should say that to him, which I think would be a little strange. I'd be like, Prabhu, highball. Your eyeballs, very clear.
Very clear. Very nice.
But yeah, there's just like literal like spiritual energy that I feel kind of radiates just from their presence, and that's been without question the highlight of the trip so far, and I'm looking forward to so much more of that in the rest of our pilgrimage.
Yeah. And what I love about that, what you shared, Dhanya, right now also, and I'm sitting here also in a room, we have a live audience of the pilgrims that are with us on this trip, that we're getting live reactions from when we talk about the intensity of Vrindavan. There was a little squirmishness. We're talking about the purity of these great souls. There was also their eyes were becoming clear, and all of us are what I'm experiencing. So much happens on pilgrimage and in our spiritual life in general. It's a cultivating of that spiritual energy. So when you look at someone like Gauranga, he was talking about, it's decades of practice and experience. And so sometimes in our spiritual practice, and we're kind of even on the pilgrimage here, it's like we're just going through it, but we don't realize that like sometimes when you're digging a trench, it doesn't really, you lose sight of what you're doing sometimes. You're just like, it's just digging. And it kind of like, and it's also in spiritual life, it mentions that when you first leave the shore of your spiritual practice, like you're kind of leaving the shore of material life and venturing on your spiritual journey, you can really see the progress that you're making, because you can see the shore behind you. Like if you leave a boat, if you're on a boat and you leave the shore, you leave the dock, and as you're moving away from the dock, you sort of can see, you look back and it's getting further and further away. We're like, oh, we're making progress and this is great, and I can see we're going somewhere. And then you no longer can see the dock behind you, but you can't see the shore that you're going to, and it's just water all around. It's like, it doesn't feel like I'm making progress anymore. I'm still moving at the same cadence, but it just visually, I can't see as if I'm making progress anymore. And that can lead to feelings of being stuck or being stagnant or questioning or doubt in my spiritual life. but we're still digging, we're still making progress, and it's that light that you see in people's eyes is a result of like continuous steady practice. And so even when it gets hard, that reassurance of ourselves is that sometimes what we're doing is we're just kind of moving through that space that brings us to a place of like, because that what I'm trying to say, that doesn't come easy. It doesn't come just like automatically. It takes that continued dedication. And so I think that being on pilgrimage and stuff like that, it provides that opportunity, because part of it is sort of, we joke, it's become a joke now, although I always say this whenever I'm doing something, like, we did it, or we're doing it. Like we were walking over here talking about our plans because we're going to be here for 2 more days at the Eco Village. And I'm like, we did it. Like we made a trip through the Eco Village somehow. We did it. And at the beginning, it was like, wow, we're going to be here for so long. But it's kind of this sense of like, even on a trip where it feels like we've been here for a few days, but it feels like a month. Like it feels like we've been here for like a long time, right? And it's that sense of like, okay, I'm just kind of like churning through, making that spiritual progress, and kind of, I don't know, it just brings life to me sometimes, even in when things get a little challenging, or like even through the challenging moments of spiritual life. It's like that sense of like, I'm building something, like refining like a diamond, polishing something away. So those are some thoughts that came to my mind.
I think it's really interesting, this idea of being around. I also was feeling this way, Danya, just like when we're in the COVID reality that we live right now, unfortunately. Like, you have your podcasts and you do what you can, and it's good. And of course, we should feel encouraged to continue doing this. However, there's also nothing like the real thing, as they say. And I've also been like I've also been very much longing for like that, yeah, that sitting with the sadhus, sitting with people who have really, really been through it. I think about my spiritual life and I'm just like, okay, I've been like really serious about my bhakti for like, I don't know, 5 years now or something like that, maybe more. And and when I was listening to some of the stories of the people here, Garanga Prabhu and Haripriya, like it's really the word that really came to my mind when I was listening to their stories, about the building of Govardhan Eco Village, about even their personal lives. They were speaking to us about certain aspects of their personal lives, just such an element of surrender. And I know that we've talked about this topic at length, but I think it's like a very big topic in general in spiritual life that never gets old, because it's always scary. And I think that the more that we see positive examples of surrender and it going like well, is really, bolstering to us in our spiritual life. Because I think the scariest part about surrender is, what if I surrender and I don't get caught? I'm not supported. What if I surrender and it doesn't go the way that I thought it was supposed to go? What if I surrender and it's too much and I can't handle it? What if I surrender and I trip and fall and mess up and etc.? And so just being around people who have like been in this process and been in the daily action of surrender for like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30, like it's just like you can see it in their eyes, like you can see it in their eyeballs. Like it's just like, whoa, very clear, very, very nice. And it makes me realize, and it makes me feel closer to spiritual life, actually, because I think sometimes when we're in cities, or at least I can speak for myself, you're going through the motions of spiritual life, you're going through the rituals, let's say that. uh, I think that something that tends to happen, and I can speak for myself, but maybe some will resonate with this, is that our bhakti practices, or our spiritual practices in general, they move from a place of depth towards a place of roteness and ritualness, where I'm just like on my beats, just like I get this, and it becomes kind of just uninspiring. And so it's really, really inspiring to be around people who are like, yes, like I'm here, I'm doing it, we're still doing it, and we're still here, and it's all happening, and it's very, very inspiring. Mm.
There was this was the quote that I was just looking up right now, that many of us may have heard. Brene Brown quotes it often. I was just kind of thinking of that. I was just thinking of this idea of the arena,
Mm.
of that she refers to, this idea of like kind of like this. I'll just read the quote. that she uses it kind of almost like the thesis statement of her work, Brene Brown. It's an extended quote. I'll read the whole thing. It's from Theodore Roosevelt. He says, "It's not the critic who counts, nor the person who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat."
Mm.
And so I was thinking of just the sense of like,
Mm.
when you see a sadhu, when you see a saintly person, you see somebody who's spent a lot of time in the spiritual arena. And sometimes I think that when I get to that arena, I get scared. I think I'm doing something wrong. Or I think that this is time to give up. Or this is time to go back to sleep. You know? But just some helpful reminder is like, I'm in the arena. And this is the area where like I'm doing hard work. And sometimes it's going to be really challenging, but it's glorious work. It's powerful work. It's rewarding work. And you see the fruits of it in spiritual people. And if you don't meet highly advanced spiritual people, it's hard to build faith. It's hard to have a reassurance that this is leading somebody somewhere. When you meet somebody who's like, yeah, I've been through what you've been through and so much more and gone along, and I've come out the other end, and I've found not like even I love Ryan Holiday writes his first book is The Obstacle is the Way, that we don't grow in spite of our obstacles, but because of them. Like I would not have been the same unless such and such came in my path. And I think that spiritual mindset of being able to turn obstacles into opportunities or curses into blessings, and realizing like if my goal in life is to have material success look a way, then there's so many things that can go wrong. If my goal in life is to transform spiritually, to transform my character from the inside out, to learn how to love more, to forgive more. Dhanya led this beautiful session today about expanding space, like holding more space rather than running away from the things that overwhelm us, learning how to expand and grow my ability to hold space for so many things. And that way I can actually experience the completeness of life. Because if there's that movie, you see Inside Out, the Disney Pixar movie, and the whole movie is about like, there's those 5 core emotions: joy, disgust, sadness, anger, fear. And it's all about like only experiencing joy, only experiencing joy. And the whole thing is like, we gotta like get everything back to joy. And then there's just like the little sadness. She's kind of like the little, like the Eeyore of the group, and just kind of like just behind, like almost like, kind of like, what are you doing here? And somehow, without giving things away, that there's this recognition, this realization that life is so blended, and that so many of our experiences are not just cookie cuttered, joyful, sad, fearful, etc. But there's this whole life of blended experiences. There's a lot of things that are joyful and sad at the same time, even. And so if we aren't able to kind of like go through those mucky moments of our spiritual life and learn to hold space, like anything that's challenging, anything that's uncomfortable, anything that's sad, anything that's anxious, anything that's fearful, I just block it away and I just try to find a way to go back into my happy space, then I'm actually missing out on this broader gamut of life. And being able to like fully open up space, it increases compassion, which increases connection, which the word compassion literally means to suffer with somebody. Passion means suffer, and con means with, to suffer with another person. So compassion. And so that's why that movie, I never saw it, but The Passion of the Christ, I always wondered, why is it called The Passion of the Christ? Like, was he passionate? But it means the suffering of Christ. And so compassion means to suffer with another person. And so like to be able to go into the depths of your own inner experience and then allow that to help you connect more with other people actually creates this sense of connection that is really quite beautiful. So anyways, I was thinking of this quote from, Brene Brown quotes it, but it's from Teddy Roosevelt, and this idea of like being in the arena. And I was relating it to sadhus, who are people that have just like spent years in the arena, and we have that opportunity. It's almost like a choice we get to make of like, do I want to shy away, or do I want to like I'm gonna like stand in this, you know. So
Mm.
should we just go home? Are we done? Retreat. We're going to Mumbai. We can either go on to Dehradun or we just go back to New York. Like we're gonna lose half the people. So
Mm.
what do you guys think?
What do you think? What do you think, Danya? I was gonna say something, but I want to hear it.
Danya's like, I really need you guys to do this.
No, go for it.
Well, I was just gonna give a disclaimer, or play devil's advocate a little bit because I agree with everything that you said. But I also think that sometimes in spiritual life, I mean, I've definitely felt this. Like, sometimes there's like a little bit of pressure to be like, I've got to, I've got to be able to expand all my feelings, and I've got to be able to hold space, and I've got to be able to like show up, and the sadhus, and I have to be a sadhu, this, like this. And I think what just came to my mind, that beautiful image that you gave of like, I can't see the bay, I can't see where I departed from. I'm kind of just like floating in the ocean. And I think, we spoke about this with the Chuta a few days ago. I can't remember exactly what we spoke about, but I think we spoke about this. But I think some days we're just going to be floating in the middle of the ocean. And I know that sounds like really scary. And I know that sometimes we don't like to talk about that because it's like the scary parts of spiritual life where we don't know what the answers are. And all we're doing is asking questions or calling out, and all that's coming up might be emotions or tears or anger or triggers from the past. And something that's been really meaningful for me in general in spiritual life, but also today, I had such a funny moment today because um, I had to go. We had a very beautiful session led by Dhanya today about expanding our horizons and being able to really dig deep into what does spirituality mean for us? What does God mean for us? What are some negative impressions? Well, you didn't actually like cue anything negative, but just like it was interesting that that's what came up for a lot of us, that all of our impressions from childhood were negative. It was interesting for me because basically both my partner and I were raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. And so we had like a lot of just religious baggage, just a lot of religious baggage. And he was getting a little emotional, and I noticed. And towards the end, but we had to film something, he and I. And Doyal was like, we had this beautiful session, and Doyal was like, okay, I think we need Kirtan. I think we need Kirtan to just like send this home. And to my partner, I was like, we got to go. Like, we have to, we have to film. And he was like, oh. And I could tell he kind of wanted to stay for the kirtan. And it was so funny because we walked all the way to the door and everyone saw us leave and we were like, bye, okay, Hare Krishna. And we walked all the way to the door and I could just see it that like he needed to process, like he needed to just sit. And I was telling him, I was like, we can stay. And he's like, no, we have to do your thing. And I was like, no, we're staying. And we came and we stayed, and I was so happy that we stayed. And those days where we're floating in the middle of the ocean, where it just feels like all we have are questions, where it feels like any type of association, good association, or that light of devotees, that light of Krishna, like everything just seems far away. I think kirtan is such a powerful and potent practice, whether we're by ourselves, with a friend, chanting to our plants, or with our pets, or just with a group of people, if you have that available to you. It's such a powerful practice because it really transcends any type of like thoughts that we're trying to figure out our emotions, or any trying to just like logic our way out of of what we're feeling. And it really, really just what's this word I'm looking for? Synchronizes. That's not the word. It's like yes, it really integrates everything that's going on. And so something I've been really grateful for in this pilgrimage is that we've had a lot of kirtan. And actually, like whenever we finish, we're like, we should have more kirtan. There should be always more kirtan. And so yeah, I've been really grateful. And I kind of wanted to pass the ball to you, Danya, and ask you about that because you are one, because I want to hear
We've
you.
been wanting to pass the ball to you for a while.
Guys, I
Can you
think
hear
when
me
you try
now?
to pass the mic, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, the mute was on here, so I think when we were passing it,
Oh,
it was clicked.
we're back.
Anyways, Kishore shared some gems, and I can attest to that. So just trust that everything he said was brilliant up until wherever it is that you heard. And everything after that was even more brilliant. You'll have to watch the replay. Um, yeah, so he was asking, musicality and kirtan and how that's influenced us. It's interesting because I grew up in a family, my dad's a musician by profession. So I grew up in a house of musicians. All my siblings are, musical, super talented. And then Bali grew up in a house of not musicians, but great lovers of kirtan. And so I think that it's like a testament of how it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter because if you're dedicated and you make it a spiritual practice that's significant for you, you're going to develop anyways. Like Bali's musicianship is exponentially more expert than mine. But he didn't necessarily have he's never like taken classes. He didn't come from a family of musicians. It's just like 100% dedication. It's just hours and hours and hours. And when he talked about his history of kirtan, he was talking about how growing up, especially in his formative years, it was just like, yeah, let's do 16 hours of kirtan. And then the next day, let's do another, 12 hours of kirtan, for festival weekends. And then every week they'd host kirtans in their homes. And when they'd get together with their friends, they'd do kirtan. And it's just like when you're so in love with a spiritual practice, not only does it give you depth in the practice in terms of your own spiritual development, but you actually also develop like skills. Like his drumming is incredible, regardless of the fact that it's attached to a spiritual practice. It's amplified by the fact that it's attached to a spiritual practice. So I think, and we get this question often because we'll lead retreats and workshops related to kirtan, and people always want a shortcut. They're like, okay, so yeah, I mean, I know that you put in a lot of hours, but like, how do I get to like that level drumming like in the next like maybe 5 or 6 days? and we're always like, that's not gonna happen. Even people in communities are like, how do you lead a good kirtan? You're just like that question it's not even a real question. It's not even a real question, because the quality of a kirtan has to do with the mood of surrender and the mood of kind of focus and intention of the leader, the sincerity in their heart. That's really all that matters, because then if not that, why else are you doing kirtan? There could be musicianship all day and night, and it's not a deep practice, and there could be absence completely of musicianship, and it's a total real surrendered spiritual experience. So it's nice when they can go hand in hand, because you're also facilitating an experience for other people when you're doing sankirtan. You're doing congregational chanting. It's nice when it could be, just like when you're cooking, you may be developing yourself in the kitchen, and so not all of the preparations you make are palatable and tasty every time as you're learning, but the goal is for it to be a sincere offering that's also tasty, right? You don't want to be like, it's burnt again, but my heart is in it. It's like, well, like let's dedicate some time to the flavor. So in that sense, it's always nice to refine. Same thing with, deity worship. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing. So we want kirtans to be aesthetically pleasing. We want, tunes to be accessible and relatable, and to learn the range of the people that you're singing with, and really facilitate a nice experience. I think as a leader, that's an underrated skill, which is, are you paying attention to your audience and facilitating a meditation for them? It's a really important position of service, actually. You're really serving. So yeah, I guess that's what came to mind with that question.
Beautiful. For dinner, by the way, we have burnt rice with unsalted soup, but it's filled with so much devotion. I hope you guys enjoy it. That's the time we have. We are up on time, and we're just super grateful. Oh, Lilesh already put some takeaways. Thank you. Lilesh already put takeaways here. Let's see what we got. The association of sadhus, or spiritual people, is magical. We can see in them the fruits of the spiritual process, and that keeps us inspired and nourished. Sometimes we're just floating on the boat, and it's okay. The association of sadhus will carry us through. Don't run away from the difficulties and challenges, but learn how to create more space to experience the complexities of life. And compassion increases connection. Beautiful. Thank you, Leishwari, so much. Beautiful takeaways. And as mentioned, this is our last podcast episode for the week, because we're going into the weekend, and then next week we're going to be traveling a little bit. So we're not sure when we're going to see you guys again. We'll keep you posted, though. We'll be thinking about all you guys and sending you lots of love and prayers from here in India. And we're going to be continuing on in our journey. And so thank you guys all so much. Please be well, take care, be safe, and we'll see you all again soon, whenever that may be. Bye-bye.